Yeah, hello everyone. Is my voice audible, guys?
Yes.
So in last session, we have designed that sign up form, right? And we have seen how to implement routing in React application. Now, what we have to do, let's try to understand. Now here, if you see, we have this sign in form. And if I click on sign up, we have here sign up form. So we are able to navigate from sign in to sign up and sign up to sign in. This is what we have learned in the last class. Now, what we need to do, let me try to explain. So let's take this sign up form flow. So this is our sign up form. I will take this screenshot and I will add here. Now, what we have to do here, let me try to explain. Now, this is our sign up form. Now here, user will enter his details here. He will enter his username. He will enter email ID. He will enter password. He will enter city. He will select the gender and he will click on this sign up button. The moment he click on this sign up button, we have to access the data from all these fields. Whatever user have entered the data, that data we have to enter, access. That data we have to validate. If everything is okay, then that data we have to send to the backend. So we have to create one backend application. And this backend application we are going to create using Node.js and Express.js. Inside this backend application, we are going to create some REST APIs. So let's assume that this is one REST API for your sign up. So we are going to create one sign up REST API. So like this, we will create one sign up REST API. So what we are going to do, whenever user will click on this sign up button, first we will access the data from the text box. So first step is access the data from all the fields. Second, validate the data. Validate the data. Third, if everything is okay, then send data to the backend. What we have to do, if everything is okay, then this data we have to send to the backend. How you will send to the backend? For that, you have to do the post request. You have to do the post request. So you are going to send a post request. With this post request, you will send the data. You will send the data. With that post request, you are going to send the data. Now, what this sign up REST API will do, it will receive your request. From your request, it will access the data and then it will connect with the database. It means we are going to have the database as well. And here we are going to use MongoDB database. So once we send the request, and with that request, once we send the data to this REST API, now this REST API will access the data from that request, and then it will connect with the database. And inside this database, it will store that data. It will store that data. Once data is successfully stored in the database, then this database will give some success confirmation to this REST API. That data got successfully stored. Once this REST API receives the success response from the database, then this REST API will send the response back to the client. This REST API will send the success response to the client. If there is any error if there is any error while storing the data inside the database, if data is not stored successfully, in that case, this MongoDB database will send error response to the REST API. If this REST API receives error response, then it will send the error response. It will send the error response to the client. Now we have to handle this both the situation. We have to handle the success response. We have to handle the error response. If you get error response, then here you have to show some notification that user failed to register. Something like that we have to show. If we get success response, then we have to switch. Then we have to switch from this sign up form. From this sign up form, we have to switch to the sign in form. So programmatically, dynamically, you have to switch from sign up form to sign in form. When you have to switch from sign up form to sign in form, if you receive the success response, then only you have to switch. So now this part we have to implement. So right now, don't worry about the backend. At least we have to implement this front end part. Front end part means we have to access the data from the fields. We should know how we can access the data from these fields. Second, we have to validate that data. We have to check whether user entered properly the data in this field or not. Third, we have to send the request, and with that request, we have to send the data. We have to do the post request. With that post request, we have to send the data. This is the role of our front end developer. Once we receive the response, now based on response, whether we should navigate to sign in form or we have to show here error notification, that we have to decide. That depends upon the response what we are going to get from the backend. So now in this session, we will focus on how to access the data from the fields. We are going to focus on this part in today's session. Once we know this part, then we will see how we can validate the data. Then we are going to see how we can send the data back to the backend, how we can do the request. Once this part is done, then we will enter into the backend. Then I will take some sessions on backend. I will explain you how to develop REST APIs. First, we will learn how to create REST APIs. We will learn little bit about the database. We will see how we can connect our REST APIs with the database. Then we will see how we can receive the request from the client, how we can store that data in the database. Once you get that knowledge, then we will implement this complete flow. So like this, slowly we are going to learn the things. So now in today's session, let's understand how to access the data from the fields in React.js. So different languages, different libraries, different frameworks have different techniques. So now we have to learn how to access data from the field. From the fields, basically. To access the data from the fields in React.js, we have two ways. There are two ways to access the data from the fields. The first one is using useRef hook. And second one is using state concept. Using state concept. So now we are going to see both the techniques. useRef we will use for sign up form. This concept we will use for sign up form. And useState concept we will use for sign in form. so that you will have both the techniques. Now, once you get the job, whatever trend they are following, whatever pattern they are following in their project, you have to follow that. So right now, here we will see both. So let's understand how we can use useRef hook to access the data from the fields. So before I use useRef hook, I just wanted to know how many of you have the idea on useRef hook in React.js. So if you know about useRef hook in React.js, just message yes on the chat. If you don't know, just say no. If you know this concept in React.js, just type yes on the chat. If you don't know, just type no. So that I will get idea how many of you know, how many of you don't know. Or else, can I raise the poll? Okay, let me raise the poll, or else, guys. So let me create here one simple poll. So do you know useRef hook? Option 1, yes. Option 2, no. Required. Yeah, can you see the poll, guys? Yeah, you can answer the poll. Okay, so I got the result. Now I'm sharing the result with you guys. So this is the result I got. So out of 6, only 1 person knows, remaining 5% don't know. It's okay. Even if you don't know, it's okay, because I am expecting only basics of React. Yeah. So if any concept everybody knows, then I can skip. If majority of know the concept, then I have to explain. Okay. Yeah. So I'm stop sharing this result. Now let's understand about useRef hook in React first. Then we will see how we can use it. So what is useRef hook? So basically, it is one of the inbuilt hook, inbuilt hook in React.js. What is useRef hook? It is one of the inbuilt hook in React.js. Hook is nothing but one simple JavaScript function. In React, hooks are nothing but a simple JavaScript function. They are simple JavaScript function. So we can say that useRef is nothing but a simple predefined JavaScript function in React.js library. In other words, you can say that useRef hook is a predefined JavaScript function in React.js. Now, what is the use of this hook? What is the use of this function? There are two purposes of this function. There are two use of this function. The first use, there are two uses of this hook. What are those two uses? The first use is it is used to store the data. It is used to store the data, which we won't lose on re-rendering of the component. So what you can do with this useRef hook means, using this useRef hook, you can store the data. So let's assume that this is ref, some ref you have created like this. Now inside this ref, you can store some data. So let's assume that here I am storing some data like 100. Now this data you won't lose even if your component re-renders. Even if your component re-renders, you won't lose this data. If you want, you can update this data. If you want, you can remove this data. If you want, you can access this data. So like this, to manage our data, we can use this useRef hook. This is one of the use. I will show you practically what is the meaning of storing the data. This is one of the use. Second use of this hook is, it provides access of DOM element. It provides access of DOM element for any JSX element. It provides access of DOM element of any JSX element. So if you need DOM element of any JSX element, then we can get that access using this ref concept, using this useRef concept. So if you have the access of DOM element, then you can do directly any kind of DOM manipulations. These are the two uses of useRef hook. The first use is we can store the data. Second use is it provides the access of DOM element. So if you have the access of DOM element, you can do any kind of DOM manipulation. Directly you can do DOM manipulation. That is the best advantage we have with this useRef hook. So what is useRef? It is one of the inbuilt hook in React.js. Hook is nothing but simple JavaScript function. Now, what is the use of this hook? Using this hook, we can store the data. Using this hook, we can get the access of DOM element. Now, let's see practically how we can store the data, how we can use this data, how we can maintain the data with this ref. Plus, we will see how we can get the access of DOM element. So for our requirement to get the access of the data that we are entering in these fields, we required this second purpose. We required this second point. So if you understand this second point, then we can easily access the data from this fields. But first, let's understand how to store and maintain the data with this useRef hook. Whenever we call useRef hook, whenever we call this hook in React, it returns one object. Whenever you call this hook, it returns one object. This object contains only one property. Object means it will be something like this. Now in this object, there will be only one property whose key name is current. And by default, value of this property will be undefined. So whenever we call this hook, it returns one object. Now this object contains exactly one property whose key name is current and value will be undefined. If you don't want undefined as a value and if you want some other value, then that data you can pass as an argument to this useRef hook. Now this useRef hook can take one argument. You can pass some data as an argument. Suppose if I am passing 100. In that case, what this hook will do? This 100, it will assign to this current property as a value. So instead of assigning this undefined like this, it will assign now this 100. So whatever you will pass, that value will be assigned to this current property as a value. You can pass string here, you can pass boolean, you can pass one object, you can pass one array, you can pass one number, whatever you want, you can pass as an argument. So let me show you practically this part now. So for this, what I will do, in our src folder under components, I will create here one subfolder called useRef. Inside that useRef subfolder, I will create one file called userefhook.jsx. Now inside this file, I will create one component. So one component is ready. Now here I will add one title. I will say h2 and I will add here useref hook concept. Now this component I want to show on my screen. So I will go to app.jsx. I will import here useRef hook component. Right now I am commenting these routes. And here simply I will render useRef hook. So now all this I have commented. Now here I am just using useRef hook. Now if I go back to my browser, you will see that only useRef hook concept. So here I will add padding. To this div, I will just add some padding. Something like 50 pixels. Here I got useRef hook concept. Now what I am going to do, here after this heading, I will take one button. I will say print value. So here you should have one button. Now just to generate some space between this heading and button, I will add here one break statement. So we have one title, we have one button. Now whenever I click on this button, I want to call one function. So whenever I click on this button, I want to call one function. So here I will just say something like print value. Now we don't have this function, so I will define here const print values. So I will say values. I am defining one function. You can define like this arrow function, or you can define normal function also. Here it should be values. Now whenever I click on this button, this function will be called. Now what I want to do, in this component, I want to use this hook. I want to use useRef hook. How to use this hook? For that, first you have to import that hook. Now this hook is coming from React library. So we have to import that hook. Now call that hook here. Call that hook here. So when you call useRef hook, it returns one object. If it is returning one object, we have to store that object in one variable. I will say here, let ref object. Now this ref object is nothing but one object now. So inside this variable, one object is stored like this, and whose property is current, and by default value is undefined. So now what I want to do, whenever we click on this button, this value I want to print. This value I want to print in my console. So for that, what we will do, inside this function, we will write console.log and simply we will say ref object dot current. Because inside this variable, this object is stored. Now I want access of this value. How we can get? Simply we have to say ref object dot current we have to say. When we say ref object dot current, we will get the access to this value. So let's try now. Let's right click, open the inspect. Let's go to the console. Let me refresh here. Now we don't have anything here. If I click on this, here we got undefined. As I have mentioned, by default, it will be undefined. We got here undefined now. So whenever user is clicking on this button, we are calling this function. And in this function, right now we just added console.log and in that ref object.current. Now suppose I don't want to assign undefined. I want to assign my own value. So what I will do here, I will pass my value. I will pass 100. If I am passing 100, then what this useRef hook will do, this 100, it will assign here. So it will remove undefined, it will assign 100. Now see, if I print, if I click on this button, we should get 100 here. But here we are getting undefined. Let me refresh. Let me save. Yeah. Now let me try. I got 100. Here I am storing 100. That 100 is assigned here. Suppose if you don't want 100, you want some string. I am storing here some string. I am saying Kabir. If I store string, then here one string will be assigned. If I go back here, if I refresh, and if I click on this, I got here Kabir. Means whatever you will pass as an argument, that data will be assigned here. If you want, you can update this value also. If you want, you can update this value. So I am creating one more button here. And I will say update ref. Now if I click on this button, I will call one function called update ref. Now I don't have this function. I will create here one function. Const update ref. Now here I got two buttons. So let me just add some space between two buttons. So we got some space. Now if I click on this print value, I'm getting that value in the console. Now if I click on this update ref, I want to update this value. Whatever value is assigned, I want to update. Now instead of Kabir, I want to make it Sagar. So how to update this value? Normal object notation we can use. In normal object, how we update the values, how we update properties, in that way only we have to update. So now I can say here ref object dot current equals to new value. I'm saying Sagar. Now let's check. So I will refresh this part. So first I will click on print value. When I am clicking first time on the print value, it will print Kabir because by default we are storing Kabir. Kabir is stored. Now if I click on update ref, then my ref value should be updated. Now my value is updated. Now again I will click on print value. Now it should print Sagar here. Now Sagar. So when I refresh, first time if I click on print value, it is Kabir. Again if I click Kabir. So 9 times it is printing Kabir. Now if I click on update ref, now this value will be updated to Sagar. Again if I click on print value, it is Sagar. Now it is Sagar. So what we have learned here about useRef. So whenever you call useRef, it returns one object. That object contains exactly one property, that is current. And to that property, if you want to assign any value, you have to pass as a argument. And now, if you want, you can update that value. How to update that value? Like this, in a normal way. Update ref value. Here, print ref value. Now, like this, we can use this useRef to store some data. And that data we can update whenever we want. And if you want that data, you can access like this. Whenever, wherever in your code, if you want to access, you can access. If you want to update, you can update. Now, this data won't change on re-rendering of component. Whenever your component re-renders, this data won't change. How to prove that? For that, let's take here state concept. I am creating one simple state. And here I am using useState. And inside this, I am storing some number. Like 100 I am storing. Now this value I will display here. Now state value I am displaying in my UI. So if you see here, I got here 100. Now I will create one button called update state. I will create one button here, update state. So if you see here we got update state. Yeah, we don't have this function. Let me define this function now. Const update state. So here we got update state. Now what I have done in this example, I just used use state concept. I'm just using this use state hook and creating one simple state. And in this state, I am maintaining 100 as a value. Now my requirement is very simple. Whenever I click on this button, I just want to increase this value by 1. I just want to increase this value. So how to update this value? We know that for that we have to use setter function. So here simply I will call set state. And here I will say state plus 1. State plus 1. Now if I go back here, now if I click on this, now see my state is getting updated. Now observe here. Now suppose if I click on print value, what is the current value? Kabir. Again if I print, I got Kabir. Now if I update ref, I clicked on this, my ref is updated. Now again if I click on print value, I will get here Sagar. It means we are able to update our ref value, we are able to access ref value. Now if I click on update state, whenever I click on update state, two things will happen. The first thing is it will update my state value. After updating my state value, it will re-render my component. Re-rendering your component is nothing but it will update your UI. So right now here it is 100. The moment I click on this button, here I will get 101. How we got here 101? Because of re-rendering. And whenever our component re-renders, we won't lose this data. This data will not be lost. Still, if you click on print value, it will print Sagar only. See here, if I click on update state, it's 101. Again, if I click 102. Now, again, if I click on print value, it should print Sagar only. See, here I got 2. Again, if I print on this, now here I got 12. So whatever data you are storing in the ref, that data you are not losing on re-rendering of your component. So that is what I have explained here, first point. it is used to store the data which we won't lose. So once you store the data, you won't lose this data on re-rendering of your component. Even if your component re-renders, you won't lose the data. Instead of ref, if you store the data in normal variable, then you will lose the data. See here. Suppose if I have like this normal variable, where data, and here I am storing something like 99. Now my requirement is, if I call this print value, I want to print ref value and I want to print variable value also. Print variable value. Here I will do console.log of data. If I click on this button, update ref, I am calling here update ref function. Now in this I am updating the ref. With ref, I want to update my variable also. Update variable. So what I will do, whatever current value is there, 99, that I will increase. Data plus first I will do. So it will increase the value. Now see here. Let me refresh. Now I will click on print value. When I click on print value, first time it will print the default values. So for our ref, default value is Kabir. So in console, Kabir should print. And for variable, it is 99. So it should print 99. If I click on print value, I got here Kabir, I got 99. Now I will click on update ref. If I click on update ref, Kabir will update to Sagar, 99 will update to 100. So if I click on update ref, now Kabir updated to Sagar, 99 updated to 100. So to visualize this, again I will click on print value. So here I got Sagar 100. Again if I click, I got here Sagar 100. Now I will update my state. Now current state is 100. Now I will click on update state. If I click on update state, it's 101. Again if I click 102. Again if I click 103. I have updated my state. Whenever I update my state, my component will re-render. Whenever my component re-renders, the current value of variable I will lose. The current value of variable is 100. But now if I click on this print value, you will see that it will print Sagar as it is. But when it comes to variable value, it will print the default value. What was default value? 99. So it will print 99. See here. The moment I click on print value, now it is printing Sagar 99. Again, if I click Sagar 99. So what is the problem here? Variable value was 100, but now it is printing 99. Why? Because when you updated your state, your component is re-rendered. And whenever your component will re-render, you will lose the current value of your variables. Current value of your variables will be lost. Why? Because your component will be re-rendered. Re-rendered means this function is called one more time. This function is called. Whenever this function is called, your variable will be recreated. Whatever variable was created, that variable will be destroyed in the memory and that variable will be recreated. And when this variable is recreating, your previous value will be lost and default value will be assigned. But in ref, if you are storing the data, then your data is not lost. Still, whatever the latest data you had in the ref, that data you will be able to access. It means whenever we have a requirement to store the data and to utilize that data in our logic, in that case, better to store the data in ref instead of normal variable. Whenever you have requirement to store the data and use in logics, then or use in logics, in that case, better to store data in ref instead of normal variable. Whenever you have a requirement to store the data and use in logics, in that case, better to store data in ref instead of normal variable. When to store the data in state? Whenever you have a requirement to show the data on the UI, and if it need to be changed, on certain action, then only store the data in this state. So whenever you have a requirement to show data on the UI, and if it need to be changed on certain action, then only store the data in this state. And simple words, whenever you want to show some data on the UI, such data should be stored in this state. If you are using some data only for logic purpose, here if you see this Kabir and Sagar, I'm just using only for logic purpose. I'm not showing that data on my UI. So if you want some data to be used only for logic purpose, not for showing on the UI, such data you have to store in the ref. So in interviews, this is the one of the question, which data we have to store in ref and state, or when to store the data in ref, when to store the data in state. This is one of the interview question. So you should be very clear when to store the data in the state, when to store the data in the useRef. So if you are using data only for logic purpose, not showing on the UI, then go for ref. If you are showing certain data on your UI and which need to be changed on doing certain action, then such data you store in this state. Understood, guys? What is useRef and what is the use of useRef? This is the first purpose. Okay. Now let's understand how we can get the access of DOM element. So let me create new file here. Ref dom.jsx I will say. I will add here one title. I will say ref for DOM manipulation. And I am creating one button here. Change color. Adding BR tag. And just adding here one padding. Now this component I want to show on my screen. I will go to the app.jsx. I will import ref DOM. And here I will render ref DOM. And in between this, I will add one BR, one HR, one more BR. Okay, so it looks like this now. Now my requirement is very simple. If I click on this button, this content color I want to change. Right now the content color is black. I want to make it red. So what we need to do, whenever we click on this button, whenever we click on this change color button, we want to change its color. Means we want to do some action. So what we will do, on this button, we will add on click. And we will call one function. change color. And here simply I will define that function, change color. Now, whenever I click on this button, I want to do some action on this h2. If you want to do some action on this h2, first you have to get the DOM element of that h2. Get DOM element of h2. Now, how to get the DOM element of h2? One way is you can go with traditional JavaScript functions. Like we have document.query selector, we have document.get element by ID, we have document.get element by class name. We have so many functions. We can go with traditional JavaScript object and methods. That is one way. Another way is we can import useRef hook. We can call this hook. We know that whenever we call this hook, it returns one object. Hold that object in one variable. Whatever name you want to give for your variable, you can give. So import useRef hook, call that hook. And we know that this hook returns one object. It means here we have one object which contains current property whose value will be undefined by default. Now this object, this entire object, you assign to this h2 as a attribute. What we need to do, this entire object we have to assign to this h2 as a attribute. How to assign? For that, to this h2 JSX element, we have to add one attribute called ref, and whose value should be our reference, that is h2 ref. So what you have to do now here, to your h2 element, you have added one ref attribute. And to that ref attribute, we have assigned this reference. This is how we have to assign. Now, what is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is using this h2 ref dot current, we can get the access of h2 DOM element. So if you say here h2 ref dot current, it will return DOM element. It will return DOM element of h2. It will return h2 DOM element. So whenever we are assigning like this attribute, internally what your React will do, it will access the h2 DOM element, and that DOM element it will assign as a value to this particular property. So whenever we are assigning this attribute, internally what React will do, it will access the DOM element of h2, and that DOM element it will assign to this particular current property as a value. It will remove undefined and it will assign DOM element. That is the reason whenever we say h2 ref dot current, it returns h2 DOM element. And once you have h2 DOM element, you can do anything. I can simply say that h2 DOM element dot style dot color equals to red. That's it. Now we can go back here, and if I click on this, I got red color. Not only red color, if I want, I can change the content also. h2 DOM element dot inner text equals to, I will say, ref is manipulated. So right now, if you see, we have content like ref for DOM manipulation. If I click on this, I got here ref is manipulated. Not only h2, here I can have one input box also. Suppose I am having here input element. I am typing here, enter something or type something, I will say. I got here text box, or the text box I will add here. After H2, I will add. Here I will add one BR. Here also I will add one BR. It looks like this. Now my requirement is, if I type something here, if I type like this Sagar, and if I click on change this button, this content I want to assign to this H2. This Sagar I want to assign here. It means whenever you click on this button, we have to access the content from this box. So how to access the content from this box? For that, what we are going to do, we will create one more ref. We will say input ref. We have created one more ref. Now this input ref, we will assign to this input element. We will say ref equals to, we will assign here. So I am assigning that input ref. Now I can get the access of input DOM element. So here I will say get DOM element of H2 and input. Here I will get the DOM element. How to get DOM element? Just say let input DOM element equals to input ref dot current. That's it. Now once you get the DOM element, then access the value from that box. From this box, I want to access the value. How to access the value? Here I will say access the value from text box or input box. How to access the value from input element? We have to use this input DOM element. Just we have to say dot value. That's it. It will return the value of that text box. We can hold in one variable. Input value, I will say. And this input value you assign here. Whatever input value we have, we are assigning here. To whom we are assigning? To our H2 DOM element inner text. Here I will add one comment, change H2 color and assign input value as a text content to H2. So assign input value as a text content to H2. Now see here, I will type here Sagar. I will click on change color. I got Sagar. I will type here Kabir. I got Kabir. I will type here React.js. I will click on the button. I got React.js. So how to access the data from the text box? So for that, what we have done? First, we are creating ref. That ref we are assigning to our input element as an attribute. And then using that ref.current, we are getting the DOM element. And then using that DOM element, we are accessing the value property and we are able to get the value. And this value we are assigning to our H2 DOM element as an inner text. So this is the way how we can access the value from text box using ref concept. So like this, ref concept will help us to do the DOM manipulation. All these are the DOM manipulation. So using ref, we can get the access of DOM element. And once you have the access of DOM element, you can do any DOM manipulation. So what is the second use of ref? It provides access of DOM element of any JSX element. This is the second purpose of your useRef concept. Understood, guys? These are the two uses of useRef concept. Okay. Now in tomorrow's session, we will see how we can handle our form using this useRef concept. So I will uncomment these routes. I will comment this part. So in tomorrow's session, we are going to see how to handle this sign up form, how we can access the values from these boxes on click of this button using ref concept. And if possible, we will see the second point also. That is how we can validate the data. Okay. So I will update this paint file and this video on your group. Then you will be able to access it. Yeah, so that's all, guys, for today's session. Now remaining things we will discuss in tomorrow's session.
Hi, sir. Hi, Sagat.
Yeah.
Sir. Sir, actually, I'm trying to download that MongoDB community server. So I don't have an option to download for Windows.
You
It
will
is
get
only
for
showing.
Windows. See here.
Sorry.
Just go to your browser. Go to mongodb.com website. Now click on products. Click on community edition. Scroll down. Download community. Click on this.
Yeah.
Scroll down. Here you can search for. So here you're not getting.
Yeah. Same thing happened for me.
Maybe some settings have changed. We have to look in that settings.
Yeah. At the time you are showing it is fine, but from yesterday onwards, it is not showing the option for
Maybe their
Windows.
website is updated. Maybe they will
Yeah.
add that point. Okay. Maybe just check here. I will check that. If I get anywhere, more options you have here. Click on this more options.
No.
Yeah, maybe it is not updated. They will update it. Yeah, here you have. You can go with this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You can click on this. You can get here. So like this, if you refer, if you just search little bit, you will get it. Here they have given all this. Given enterprise. Just check for community, okay? It is enterprise part. So don't download enterprise. You have to download community edition. Here you have.
You downloading.
Downloading, right? Yeah. So from here you can download it.
Okay. If you don't mind, can you please share that link, please? Thank you.
Sir, can you share backend development syllabus, sir?
Backend development syllabus I don't have. I will create that, okay? Because for your batch, it will be completely different syllabus. So I have the syllabus for actual course. For that course syllabus will not be followed here. Here it will be different syllabus.
Okay.
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 So here I won't teach you complete backend, but I will teach you only those things which are required for our project.
So that means if you share that syllabus, we can learn from any other resources.
I will share you normal backend syllabus. You can learn from there. Okay.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah, that's all guys. Remaining things we'll discuss in tomorrow's session.